Welcome to this brand new edition of If I Ever Live to Be. Today, I have Coach Harlan Hammack with me. He's business leader and coach, founder and president of I Before E, and host of the Courage to Lead podcast, which is very exciting because you and I are kind of exchanging guest slots and conversations. So it's my honor to have you on my show today,
Oh,
Coach.
no, it's mine. Totally mine. Loved having you on my podcast a couple weeks ago. And looking forward to our conversation today. So thanks.
Yes, absolutely. Same here. And it was funny. We were teasing each other prior because you were called coach for a reason. So I love that we're kind of learning from one another and letting this dynamic flow. So I'd love to just kick us off with what I Before E coaching is and a little bit about what you do, right? Because business and leadership coaching, that is pretty broad. So tell us
Yeah,
your specialties.
it is. So started I-B4E back in 2003 as a consulting firm.
Yeah.
Um, my background is in organizational change management. So helping companies that are undergoing some major change. It could be a merger acquisition, process reengineering or restructuring, software implementation, anything that impacted the people, processes, or technology in the business was a change project. And so we would come in and help the executive team understand the impacts of that change, communicate the change, and then lead their team through the change. And that meant getting on an airplane every Monday and flying home every Friday, doing laundry and going right back out every Monday. And after about 25, 27 years of that, I got tired and told my
Yeah.
wife, I just want to stop traveling so much. When you get to know the flight attendants by name, the concierge at the hotel by name and things like that, it's like, it's time to stop traveling. So I stopped and I started networking, and I realized that a lot of the
Mm.
people in my networking groups were struggling with some of same things the bigger guys were struggling with, profitability, cash flow issues, hiring and onboarding and retaining great employees, things like that. And so I started coaching. So yeah, business coaching is kind of a big term, but basically what I'm helping people do is be more efficient in their work. They know their job, they know what they do. A lot of people start businesses or buy into a business because they love what they do and they're very good at it. They just don't always understand the complexities of business. So I tell people, I know the business of business. So let's sit down, let's look at your processes. How are they running? How efficient are they? What can we do different? And that's kind of been my whole thing is just helping people just be better at their business, enjoy their business again, take some of the frustration and the chaos away.
Yeah. When I love that word efficiency because as you were walking through that, I thought that change is something that I feel is constantly happening across the board, no matter what industry you're in. And I was thinking of you and I are both from the Atlanta area, and Atlanta is constantly under construction.
It seems like it.
Every road, right? As soon as they get it done, it's kind of like outdated and the city's already grown a little bit more. And so we have to redo some work. I feel like business is a little bit like that.
It is. And, so I said I was a change management consultant. That's kind of a misnomer because you don't really manage the change. Change happens whether you want it to or not, whether you expect it to or not. The change happens. What you want to try to do is manage the outcome of that change, right? Guide that change to where you get to the end state that is most profitable and, best for the company. And so that's what I'm trying to do with these clients. They know their business really well. They know how to do the work. They know how to bill. They know how to do all those things that are part of doing business. But it's the things that they can't really teach you. Even if you go to a business school, there's a lot of aspects of business
Sure.
that just doesn't hit you until you're on the ground, in the trenches doing it. And so yeah, working with the people that I work with and stuff, I just love it. I've got a lot of clients that are commercial and residential contractors. So again, they're great at what they do and they've got plenty of work. Now let's get it more efficient. I love to help them keep more of the money that they make. So
Mm.
get profitable, and build that profit into their business. So I like it a lot. I have seeing those light bulbs come on and seeing the change that you can make in their lives and give the owner of the business time back, give them the opportunity to step away from the business and see that it still runs, even if they're not there. So they don't feel like they have to be there all the time. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And one of the major misconceptions of running your own business, right, is that I have to do all the things. No one else can do what I do or as good as I do it, and trying to wear all the hats. And what's interesting is that actually makes you less efficient and in the end costs you more money.
A lot. Yeah.
So, Harlan, highlight for us some of those industries that you work with and tell me if you enjoy working with solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, larger corporations.
The larger corporations can afford the big guys to come in and consult for
Mm,
them, right? And there's a big difference between consulting and coaching and mentoring,
sure.
right? A consultant, you hire somebody who knows more about an aspect of your business than you do. You're hiring them for their expertise to come in and kind of do this stuff for you. As a coach, I'm helping you be better at what you do, right? I don't
Mm,
need to know your business necessarily, but I ask enough questions to see where there are inefficiencies, where there are things in consulting. We used to do what we call the start, stop, continue. There are
yes.
things that you should start doing in your business because you're not doing them yet, right? There are things you should stop doing because you're just shouldn't be doing them. And then there's continue. You're doing these things, but maybe we could make them a little bit more efficient, right? Dial them in to really get the most out of them. And so that's what I'm doing is I'm coming in asking a lot of questions to understand what you've tried already, and then I've got a toolkit of 30 years of experience, right, in business and working for different companies. Have we considered doing this? What if we tried this?
Mm,
Here's a couple ideas. And so yeah, just working with them. I like the mid-sized companies, the guys who are maybe at about maybe at a million in revenue, because they're at that point where they get a taste for this is what my business could be, but I don't know how to get to that next level.
right.
So kind of working with them, see what they've done so far, tweak it, dial it in, and then put them on a path to greatness. I worked with one client for since 2017, I think, commercial
Awesome.
electrician. He was an operations manager for the company and wanted to be a better leader, but he was really frustrated because the owner of the company wouldn't invest in the business. He was making enough money. He didn't want to get any bigger than they were. So they had 5 or 6 employees, and that's about it. And Michael, my client, I told him, well, you're frustrated. You could do one of two things: either open your own business in direct competition with this guy, or buy him out. And so that's what he did. In 2019, he bought the company. He's the president of the company. In 2019, they were doing just under a million in 2019. And in 2022, we closed at 5.2 million. And he's on target to do about 8 million this year.
Check it
So
out.
he's on a trajectory. He's got it dialed in. And as we find a problem, we focus on that. He's got his team to run the business. We focus on this issue, get that resolved, and get him moving on. So it's exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah. So say more about that because I'd love to get your take on what's the difference in those two mindsets, right? Of who owned it prior to this gentleman that's more than doubled the income.
I, I don't know. The difference in the mindset, because I've known a lot of guys that it's like, I'm making enough money to keep the lights on and pay my employees. I'm
Yeah.
happy. I'm
And that's all they
successful.
want.
That's all they want. And maybe it's because the stress level can go up if you're not running things right. You don't know you picture those guys
Sure.
spinning the plates on top of the wood dowels, right? And they're running around trying to spin these plates and keep them all in the air at the same time. That's a lot of stress. One thing that we did with Michael is helped him build the structure. He's the visionary. He's the guy who's saying this is where we're headed. And then he's got his team below him that are actually implementing the strategies they need to achieve that. So that's taken a lot of pressure off of him. He doesn't have the stress because he doesn't have to wear all the hats anymore. He can hand those out to other people. Um, and so I think that's the shift is where if you want to be big, there's going to be some issues in there and stuff. So start building that structure to help support the growth. But yeah, some of these guys they make enough money. They're comfortable, probably more money than they thought they would ever make. And some people have those limiting beliefs of money issues. I can't make more than
Right.
my parents made because that'll make it feel like maybe they were wrong or bad or unsuccessful or
Mm.
something like that. So this is the level that I want to be at. And as long as I'm there, I'm comfortable. And then you have other people that say, wow, look at the possibilities.
Okay, so I just thought of a question as you were going through that because I think that's one of the traits of a great leader is knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, and then hiring to your weaknesses. But there's a process that comes to figuring that out. It doesn't just like happen. And a lot of us probably struggle with identifying what those weaknesses are. So walk us through that and making that decision to find a coach that would bring you that help, right? I almost if I can make an analogy, it almost feels like
Mhm.
counseling, right? Sometimes coaching, counseling, these words have like negative connotations, but they really shouldn't because I feel like there's wisdom in coming out of going to someone and asking for that help to help you dig through that and see your blind spot.
Sure. Yeah, I don't see asking for help as a weakness. To me, that's a strength. I realize I've hit my limit. I've taken this company as far as I can. To get there, I need new knowledge, and maybe I don't have that, or I can't get that in a timely manner. I can bring somebody in to kind of coach me through that or mentor me through that. Yeah, we do SWOT analysis a lot.
Yeah.
Working with clients. SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So the strengths, what things do you do better than anybody else? You love doing it. You're great at it. It's hard sometimes for people to write down. It's like, it feels like patting themselves on the back, but you have to
Right.
be honest with yourself. I am really good at this. Write down all those things. Weaknesses are not bad things. Weaknesses are things that you don't do, or you don't do them as consistently as you should, but you can get better with a little bit of effort and attention, right? I don't speak a second language. It would open up my business if I spoke French or Spanish.
Uh,
I'm trying to learn Spanish. It's a weakness for me right now, but as I gain that skill, I can slide that over to the strengths column. And that's really what you're looking for somebody to identify where they excel and where they fall a little bit short, and ask for that help. How can I do this? And if you can't do it, can I hire somebody to pick that up for me? I'm bad at math. I can spell
Me too.
math. I don't like math. I can write out a check, but that's like the extent of it. For me, that would be one of the first people that I would hire. Get the books in order, get my, all the accounting things and accounts payable and receivable, get all that stuff in order for me because I don't do it. I'm not good at doing that. I throw a credit card down and pay for something and then it's out of my mind. You need somebody to take care of that. So identifying these are my strengths that I can focus on. These are some areas that I need help, and then hire those people first.
That's so good. And I feel like it's this perfect segue between the difference of having a business and having a job. And that could
Mhm.
even mean you have a business, but you've made it a job for yourself, right? That's not even like, well, I'm self employed versus I work for someone. So walk
Yeah.
us through that.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with a client a few years back. He had created a great job for himself. He had
Hmm.
worked corporate for a long time, decided he wanted to go into business for himself. And so he bought a business and he ran everything. The purpose of a business, you should have a business that runs for you, generates revenue for you, generates profit for you without you needing to be there. That's the perfect business, right? If you can get up in the morning and decide, do I need to go in or not? Can I look on my phone and see a report that tells me the business is running fine and then go
Yeah.
on about my day and do stuff? What people do is they create a job where everything evolves around them or revolves around them. They are the center, the hub, and the spokes of that wheel, that
Hmm.
nothing can get done without them. Well, that's just a job. That means that you can only put in so many hours a day, so you're limiting yourselves to what could happen. If you hire somebody, but then you micromanage them, now you have two people doing this job instead of just one. You
Yeah.
have to be smarter about and there's a progression of being a business owner and then an entrepreneur and then an investor. And I forget the exact layout of that, but yeah, you start the business yourself. You do what you need to do to get the ball rolling, but then you start hiring people and building your team and delegating all the work to them to where you're pointing the direction and then they make that happen. And then you extract yourself from the business because it's running for you. Now you have this money and profit that you're pulling out that you can start investing in other opportunities and growing. And that's really where people make the money is they get this business rolling and they're making their money and now they invest in this business, get it working and go on. That's where you really start making the big bucks. But what you don't want to do is just create a job to where you're getting up working 10, 15 hours a day,
Right.
and everything relies on you. You can't sell that kind of business. You know, if I have a good business that's running and is profitable and everything like that, I can leave that as a legacy for somebody. If I work at Coca-Cola, I can't just decide one day I'm going to retire and hand my job to my kid and say, sit here and this is what you do, right?
Right.
Because you can't
Right.
do that with a job. The business, you want to try to create a legacy that you can leave for somebody else. So, yeah, the first thing, yes, you're going to wear all the hats, you're going to do all the work, you're going to be working 20 hours a day. As soon as you can, start building your team and start delegating and start getting those processes in order and the systems in order so things kind of run on autopilot. That's where freedom comes in.
Yeah. So I've only said this word once during the show. I said it at the beginning, but I feel it through everything you've already said, Coach, and that's this word courage. So you host the Courage to Lead podcast. If anyone goes on your site, it's there. Why courage? What about that word just stands out and is so important to you?
The podcast, the Courage to Lead, came from a conversation I was having with a client who he didn't like to have those difficult conversations you have to have with employees sometimes. And I kept telling him, you need to step up. You need to step into your role as the leader. Show some chutzpah, show some courage, right? You have to speak up and say what needs to be said, not just because people will hire somebody and then feel bad about making a bad hire and just tuck the person over at the corner. They're still paying them.
Yeah, that's
But
so
they're just over
true.
there. Yeah. Why is this person still? Well, they're really nice. Okay. But they're not working. They're not doing the work you asked them to do, right?
Yes.
But they keep them. And so we were having this conversation. I said, you do need to be more courageous as a leader. And he said, well, what does that look like exactly? It's like, okay. So I did some research. I found some articles that talked about courage, the different types of courage. There's physical courage and spiritual courage we know about, but then there's empathetic courage, having that empathy, making room for other people's emotions, which is tough for some people. So that's where the courage part comes in. There's social courage, saying what needs to be said, disciplined courage, doing what needs to be done, even if you don't want to. I don't want to get out of bed and exercise every morning, but, have that discipline to do it. Intellectual courage, the courage to say, I don't know, the courage to understand that you're not always the smartest person in the room, and that's okay. There are other people who have that knowledge for you and stuff. And these are all types of courage that I think leaders need to tap into all the time. And so the conversations that I have on the podcast are about, where did you find the courage to walk away from the 9 to 5 to create your success? Where did you find the courage to write the book or do the TED talk or to fail and then get right
Mm,
back up and try it again? Because I've had some people on that have had some amazing stories of failure that they kind of brought about on themselves. I always tell people, we create our own monsters. These people created
mm.
the own environment where they failed and they picked themselves up and kept going, where a normal human would be curled up in a fetal position over in the corner, right? But these guys got back up and picked themselves up and are winning now. And yeah, always anxious to talk to people to find out, where did you get that? Did you pick that up from your parents? Do you come from a long line of entrepreneurs? Or is this something you learned maybe from a coach or a teacher or a mentor that you've had? Where did that courage come from?
Yeah. When I love one of the questions you ask, which is if one always felt like they had that. I remember that was such a challenge for me, and I think I
Yeah.
actually paused and I was like, "Let me think and see how I answer this." So, all of you, if you want to know how I answer it, you're gonna have to go listen to Coach
Listen
Harlan's
to the
podcast
podcast.
because I'm not gonna reveal it. But that's such a challenging question to really
Yeah.
have to sit down and examine.
Yeah. Yeah. And people have different ideas of where that courage, a lot of people will point
Yeah, I
immediately,
bet.
oh, my parents, or
Mm,
my teacher. I had a teacher in school, or I had a coach, a football coach or something like that. Some people, it's just like, I looked at my kids and I thought, I can't let them down. I have to get up and do this, you know? And a lot of moms or single moms, it's like, I have to be this for my kids. And that's where they found that courage to keep going, even though they're afraid, even though they don't know what's over the next hill. You stand up and you just keep going.
So something else that you do, coach, that I would love to be able to do one day that does require much, much courage is being able to fly a plane. which you were able to do. You have your pilot's license. I remember when we first connected, I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. It's a little secret tea aspiration that I've always had. So tell us about that.
You ought to do it. Years ago, my wife and I stopped giving each other gifts, things, right? Because things get
Yeah.
lost, things get put in the closet and never looked at again. We started giving experiences because those last
Mhm.
forever. So I gave her a Corvette racing school out in Arizona. That was
How
fun.
cool. I'm down for
And
that too, by the
oh,
way.
definitely, definitely. Go out and do it. I'll give you all the information. I gave that to her, and then later that year, I think it was for Christmas or my birthday, she gave me an introductory flight where a pilot takes you up, flies you around, and I loved it. I mean, I grew up next to the Burbank Airport out in California, and so I loved watching the planes. Well, we got to go up in the plane, and we're up at altitude, and finally he takes his hands off the wheel and goes, "You have the controls." And I said, "Excuse me, what? What?" He goes, "You have the controls." And so I said, "What do I do?" And he goes, "Go that way." And so he taught me how to turn, how to navigate, how to do up and down. It was awesome. When we came back down, he, of course, landed the plane, parked it where we were supposed to. We opened up the canopy and I'm grinning from ear to ear. And my wife said, "Did you like it?" And I said, "I loved it." She goes, "Do you want to take lessons?" And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "I've already filled out all the paperwork. Just go in and sign it." And I did.
How cool.
So 2008, I did my ground school and then got my license and everything. Very expensive hobby. It's a lot of fun. I love it. It's amazing feeling, up there flying around, but it's such an expensive hobby. It seems like all my hobbies are expensive. I don't know why. Why can't I do something simple like stamp collecting or something, right? But I mean, skydiving and flying and scuba diving and yeah, they're all expensive.
Yeah, I'm over here. I like expensive things, right? So I'm over here thinking like, great. I'm okay if I swap out the dream of flying the plane to learning how to sport race the Corvette.
Yeah,
Can that be a business expense, Harlan?
we could probably figure a way to write it off. Yes,
I like it.
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
like this. I like this idea. So before I lead into the last question that I ask every guest, Harlan, please tell our listeners where they can go find out about you and also listen to the podcast.
So my business is IB4E or IB4E coaching. I am active on LinkedIn. My website is IB4E-coaching.com. So that's the letter I, the letter B, the number four, and the letter E dash coaching.com. And my podcast is called The Courage to Lead, and it's available anywhere you get your your better podcasts.
This is true. I recommend going and listen to it. Yeah, I mean, it's really great. I've enjoyed it. I've learned so much.
Yeah.
And what I like to ask my guests at the end of every show is, if I ever live to be, that's the name of the show, but each episode title is a thing that I want to live to be. And sometimes it's a little bit of a play on words. Sometimes it's an ongoing thing. It's not just one destination. But I would like to know, what does Harlan want to live to be? What do you want to be known for?
Hmm. Wow. I just I want to be of service to
Hmm.
someone. I want to be helpful. I've always wanted to be helpful. That's one reason I went into consulting. I think helping companies in areas where they didn't have the skill, coaching, helping people be better and just kind of make their lives better. You always hear about these, you go hiking in the woods, leave only footprints, right? Leave the place better than it was when you found it.
Yes.
I want to leave the world, my little piece of the world better than it was when I found it.
I love that answer. As you were saying that, it actually took me back to having your pilot's license, believe it or not, because I was kind of picturing the control board
Hmm.
because you're I would assume, having to operate multiple things at once. How do you feel like that plays into that? Being able to take off and monitor all your levels and the wind, right? Which is a factor you can't control.
I use a lot of analogies, flight analogies in my coaching. I've actually written two books. The first one is Forgettable. The second book is very good. It's called Barnstorming. A Pilot's Guide to Growing Your Business. The barnstormers would do a lot of things to promote themselves, self-promote, and get the word out about who they were and what they did and how to bring people out to the field. So watch them fly and things like that. Trying to teach people how to do that in their own business, how to promote yourself, self-promote. My first book was called Flight Planning. I'm a visual flight rule pilot, VFR, which means I have to have constant view of the ground. I can't fly through clouds or bad weather. So in my flights, I'm looking for landmarks, right?
Mm.
So many minutes into my flight at this altitude on this heading, there's a water tower off to my left. And if I see the water tower, then I know I'm pretty much on course. If I'm not, or if the water tower is off to the right side, then I'm off course. I need to get back on. In business, we have to do the same thing. Set your goal, understand where you're starting from, what your destination is, plan how you plan to get there, and what are some checkpoints along the way that you can measure your progress. This far into this new product rollout or something like that, so far into it, we should be at this level, or this amount of revenue, or this many customers, or whatever that checkpoint is. Make sure you put those checkpoints in place and then measure your progress. So there are a lot of analogies that match. I'm sure we could do it with almost anything, but that's what I've used is flying, is how to keep track of it. Yes, in the cockpit there are thousands of dials and gauges. You've seen the big 747 cockpits, right? I can't fly one of
Yes.
those, but you don't just go in and start flipping things without understanding what you're doing. So
Mm.
if there's a problem in your business, you don't try to fix everything. Identify that one thing, the root cause of that one thing, and fix that. Right. And so it's talking about them, how to look at the gauges. What are the gauges telling you? What are they not telling you? What are you experiencing? And what do we need to look at to see, to kind of tell us where that might be coming from, what that root cause is. So yeah, I try to use flight analogies a lot in my coaching. And
Yeah.
people seem to get it. They seem to understand.
That's amazing. So good. Well, Coach Harlan, I knew that this episode was going to be just full of knowledge and golden nuggets. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime, anytime. And I would love to have you back on my podcast. The time flies by so quickly. People don't
It,
understand.
oh,
Yeah.
it really does. It's yeah, you're so right. It is interesting and gosh, I feel that's its own analogy in itself because if you're not used to podcasting, I feel like you look at it like, wow, I've got to talk for 30 minutes and fill this time. And am I that interesting? And I have to come up with all these answers. But you get on there and it goes by so very quickly.
So
It's so
fast.
true.